And now they're trying to dig up content and say that she's a witch. So we're supposed to drown her, burn Brett Cooper at the stake. Then where does that put the rest of us? I mean, what is wrong with these people? I am telling you, there is no way that we can break bread. The Israel First movement, like I said, is a true cancer. It just wants to destroy. There is so much hate, but I also want to be clear that they are growing increasingly dangerous.
The noticing continues, and Brett Cooper deserves praise. That's what Candace Owens says anyway. Brett Cooper recently departed from the Daily Wire to strike out on her own, and she's attracted the indignation of the worst Israel First Zionists in the country. What do you know? She probably dared to prioritize the United States over this foreign rogue regime. So let's see what Candace has to say about that. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And in case you missed it, yesterday, they started attacking Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper, 23-year-old, bubbly Brett Cooper. She makes the majority of her videos dedicated to pop culture. Yes, she covers things that are, I would say, mainstream politics, nothing too daring, never speaks about Israel. And she did her part, by the way. Zionists wanted her to do her part and encouraged New Yorkers to get out and vote against Mamdani. But it's not enough, of course, because this is a radical ideology. You give them 100%. You even say one critique, and they don't want to break bread with you. They want to destroy you, and that's what they want to do to Brett Cooper. Because she watched the totally deranged Tucker is Not MAGA Republican Jewish Coalition event, and she agreed with the majority of sensible people that demands to censor speech, to deplatform is not only childish, it's also ineffective. It's also antithetical to what it means to be a conservative. So I'm going to let you listen to what Brett Cooper said about Randy Fine, and let me know if you're just so offended that you think that she needs to be canceled and destroyed. Take a listen to what Brett Cooper said.
Like Randy Fine, if you don't know who he is, he's a representative from Florida. He's the same guy who bragged about not washing his hands after he had a handshake with Netanyahu. He's repeatedly introduced bills to criminalize anti-Semitism, infringing upon free speech. I mean, he obviously, I'm sorry to say, but he obviously cares more about Israel than he does, principles like free speech. So, buddy, like, my advice to you, Randy Fine, is just move to Israel at this point. Like, considering you had to go through anger management classes a few years ago, I genuinely think you would probably be happier if you just moved to Israel. And that's not a dig at him. That's just a fact. It's a nudge of encouragement. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be healthy. I think you would be happier if you just moved to Israel. You could be over there singing songs with Mike Huckabee.
Absolutely, man. If you're not aware of what she's referring to there, Mike Huckabee did a bastardized version of Sweet Home Alabama, just changed the lyrics with a band over in Israel to be Zionist in orientation. It's a total Hasbara version of Sweet Home Alabama, which is really the most anti-American thing you could possibly do, by the way. How do I malign America more than siding with this treacherous regime in a war versus Iran or the genocide? I bastardize Leonard Skinner. That's how you do it, really.
Seems like pretty sound advice. Rather than trying to make this country Israel, why don't you just go live in Israel? And here's what she had to say regarding Ted Cruz. Take a listen.
You are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see how irresponsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, "They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down." And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this. "Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good." So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that the conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are changing, so again, it makes sense why this group is incredibly frantic.
Yeah, this is about the best point you can possibly drive home, because I can't tell you how many times I looked on Twitter and saw all the vitriol of conservatives, of establishment conservatives, and, some distant conservatives saying, hey, it was all this rhetoric likening Trump to Hitler and saying that, a Holocaust was just around the corner that caused Thomas Matthew Crooks to shoot Trump. Like, that's the ideology and that's the action this type of speech inspired. And then Ted Cruz is part of the crowd saying that. And then he's going to just go ahead and do that toward Tucker Carlson, toward people that dared to talk to Nick Fuentes. And by the way, push back on him, saying some of his ideas were anti-Christian and that some of the best critics of Israel are Jewish. Pushing back profusely at some parts in that interview, which they didn't watch because they care more about the narrative than the actual truth on this. It really shows the glaring hypocrisy of this America First movement where you're applying different standards to different people and trying to maintain this Zionist narrative when we're all noticing. We're all noticing how absurd this all is.
She's a voice of Gen Z, so you would think that the good thing to do here would be to listen, to break bread, for someone to reach out and invite her onto a show so they can talk about it, so they can hear their voices. You might recall Charlie Kirk did this. He sat down with Gen Z and said, I'm trying to tell them that they are pushing an entire generation away with their actions. But we know how they responded to Charlie Kirk doing that. They started calling him an anti-Semite. They started squeezing him up into the last moment of his life. They were making financial threats to him. And not just financial threats, they made good on those threats. People like Bob Shillman took $2 million away from him because he let Tucker Carlson hit the stage. They've learned nothing.
Yeah, they truly have learned nothing. It's Randy Fine up there at this conference the last weekend saying, literally, and I'm not making this up, check this out, fact check me, that Tucker Carlson's the most dangerous anti-Semite in the country. Just think of that. And that just passes from a sitting congressman, and we're not supposed to, turn our head and be like, wait, what? What did you just say? To say he's leading a new Hitler Youth movement, which Randy Fine followed up in the next sentence after that. It just is too absurd, man. We can't take this anymore. They aren't realizing they're still trying to play this old game of canceling people and use the same liberal establishment tactics inwardly against their own tribe. It's indistinguishable from what woke liberals said about conservatives. Even like Ben Shapiro, that's part of his rise, was going to college campuses. And people are calling him, he's this fascist, he's an extremist, he's a racist, he's a bigot. Well, that's the exact same strategy that those people who heard that are using now against Tucker Carlson. They have more resentment toward Tucker Carlson than the leader of Syria that just went into the White House today to meet Donald Trump, who is a literal Al-Qaeda leader. He replaced Assad because Israel wanted him to be replaced. Turkey helped with it. The United States, through the CIA and Operation Timber Sycamore, did it too. It just really shows you the disconnect here of who they believe is the enemy. It's not the Al-Qaeda emir walking into the White House and collaborating with the United States now in this treachery, literal treason. It's Tucker Carlson of all people.
Learned nothing. And so rather than trying to reach across and say to Gen Z or to say to Brett Cooper, hey, I'd love to have you on our show, or hey, I'd love for you to meet this person, they're already calling her the white Candace Owens. If you're Aaron Wexler, here's an actual tweet. Okay, white Candace, what is a Nazi then? What? How does that make any sense? Why are you calling Brett Cooper the white Candace? Why are you even thinking about the fact that Brett Cooper is white? Why do we keep seeing this recurring theme of Jewish supremacists constantly having to comment on white people? Why does she have to be the white Candace? That's ridiculous.
Because it's a Jewish supremacist movement. That's what Zionism is. It's identity politics, just a Zionist flavor of it. And it's, very typical in the establishment right, in the pro-Israel right. That's what they do. And they don't even mince words about it. They're very clear about that in a lot of cases. And, it just is so ridiculous as so many Americans move away from this Israel first mentality to see, again, these same tactics being used uselessly. In a way, I love the fact that they're using these tactics because they're proven not to work. They're just so hilarious and invite ridicule from all reasonable and logical people.
Nothing, we don't even have the same ideas. She's saying something sensible, but it gets worse. Ted Cruz, who's a pretty sensible guy, comes out and tries to big timer. I don't know how he thought that would land. She's 23 years old. It looks very loserish to try to big time a 23-year-old with, who are you? Here's what he had to say. I don't know who this angry lady is, but she's missing a key distinction. Fuentes calls himself a Nazi. He has said that Hitler is very cool and Hitler was right and he is on Team Hitler. If you explicitly side with and advocate for Hitler, you are an actual effing Nazi. Like, first off, class it up. We don't need you dropping F-bombs to a 23-year-old. Secondly, trying to big time her and act like you don't know who she is when you have done various things with the Daily Wire, including you were featured in a movie that Brett Cooper starred in at the Daily Wire, Lady Ballers. You're good friends with Michael Knowles. You know fully well who Brett Cooper is. And like, that was a super classless tweet coming from you. Like,
Yeah, many such cases when it comes to Cruz, who basically insinuated Tucker Carlson was an anti-Semite when Tucker Carlson interviewed him a few months back, saying, "Why are you so obsessed with Israel? Why is it always about all the Jews and the Jews?" And Tucker never said anything remotely about that. And by the way, doubly hypocritical, because like 3 minutes before that, Ted Cruz said that he made it his top prerogative when he entered the U.S. Senate to be the most pro-Israel U.S. senator. Not the most pro-United States senator, not the most pro-Texan senator. It just is a total slap in the face to his constituents by favoring, again, the interests of this foreign regime over his actual constituents.
what does she have to do? Like, run for president and not win to be recognized on a global scale? Again, doing nothing to bring people over to their cause. And because it's not just about trying to big time people, but you will find that there is this current of just sheer evil.
Yeah, and if she's a Nazi, well, that's a little bit better, I guess, than being Canadian, like Ted Cruz.
That Zionism goes hand in hand with trying to deconstruct who an individual is very quickly. They began pouring through all of Brett's old content, looking for ways to go after her character. And they came across a clip of her speaking to Sean Ryan last year. Now, before I give you the context of this clip, I want you to listen to it because it will really help you process just how spiritually evil and possessed these people are, okay? This is the tweet that went up, a couple of tweets that went up saying essentially she's a witch. I'm not kidding. This is a real tweet. What a surprise. Brett Cooper and her mom engage in witchcraft. She's not a conservative. I don't care how hard people want to gaslight me about it. Here's another tweet. Brett Cooper, the most recent hero of the woke right, is a secular, nominally religious spiritualist. Her views are inherently unchristian, but that doesn't matter to the woke right as long as she agrees with or permits their hatred of Jews. She's good to go in their book. This is not a Christian movement. Here is the clip they are referring to.
We did all sorts of things. My mom visited mediums. Right after, I mean, I haven't done that, and I kind of want to, but she did. She went to multiple mediums, like one in New York, where you don't tell them or even his assistant like who you are or anything about you, and you go to this hotel room, and you would just like sit there. It's like talking about it is so weird. And both her first husband and David popped up.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And we're like, there's a 17-year-old young man here who wants to speak to you. I mean, it was like, I was actually just thinking about this meeting the other day. I was Googling, trying to see if I could find him. I need to ask my mom the name because I would love to go just do this. But yeah, she was able to speak to Don, her first husband, to hear from him. She had a miscarriage between the boys, I think, and I'm pretty sure that at one of the medium things that baby came in, said something.
You know the lights just dimmed behind you twice.
I saw that.
Okay, so now let me properly contextualize the conversation that they're having. It's actually one of the most compelling and moving conversations I've ever seen Brett Cooper have. It's a very powerful episode of the Sean Ryan Show because she tells her backstory and you realize how much substance she has and the things that she lived through. She lived through a lot. This is somebody who had twin brothers, and one of her twin brothers dropped dead from a heart attack unexpectedly. And when she describes the dynamics of what they went through as a family, meaning things you don't think about, having an identical twin brother, and then one half of you, you're literally a split cell, dies suddenly, what that does to the other twin brother who has to walk by the mirror every day and see his brother, but his brother's actually dead. So her brother that survived, he went crazy. And she takes care of him. He is in a mental hospital. And she's talking about the grieving process that they went through, what her mother went through. Her mother went and visited mediums. Like, may you never know the pain of losing a child. Like, it is something that I can't even fathom, the pain of losing a child and how it rips through her family. And she effectively lost a second brother because of having lost the first brother.
I mean, it's just so vile that you'd attack someone on this level about how they dealt with personal pain, how they dealt with that within their own family, that strikes like so close to their inner fiber that wouldn't affect the rest of us, thankfully, luckily, for the most part. It just really shows you what the Zionist movement really is all about. They won't actually tackle the issues. They won't try to defend Ted Cruz. They won't try to defend Lindsey Graham. They won't try to defend the statements of Randy Fine. It all becomes about you. You're a Nazi. You're an anti-Semite. You're a Jew hater. They'll call you, a anti-Semite, and then if they learn that you're Jewish, then, oh, you're just a self-hating Jew. They just move the goalpost to denigrate individuals rather than taking on these arguments for the large part. There have been some debates, but by and large, that is what this discourse is reduced to. You know why? They can't defend it. It's indefensible. The Israel First movement is entirely indefensible. It's treachery at the highest level. You can't exactly defend Benjamin Netanyahu right now. Even Coleman Hughes didn't try to defend Benjamin Netanyahu in his debate with Dave Smith. You can't defend the indefensible, which is Benjamin Netanyahu and this rogue regime that has disproportionate influence over our political system. And they're dragging Brett Cooper through the mud over their attempt to dig in their heels for this criminal regime.
And trying to come to terms with the fact that her family's never going to be the same again, how it led to divorce, all of these things. And they're just going, she's a witch. Her mother went to go visit a medium. That's it. Case closed. I mean, what is wrong with these people? I am telling you, there is no way that we can break bread. The Israel First movement, like I said, is a true cancer. It just wants to destroy. There is so much hate. But I also want to be clear that they are growing increasingly dangerous because they are radical at their hearts, because these are the descendants of Bolsheviks. This is not something just to laugh at. It's something to pay attention to, okay? Because if they're going after Brett Cooper in this demonic of a way, someone who's just a bubbly girl who speaks mostly about pop culture, and now they're trying to dig up content and say that she's a witch, like we're supposed to drown her, burn Brett Cooper at the stake, then where does that put the rest of us? And their rhetoric is getting dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. It really is horrifying. And what's so irony is there's so much projection here by the Zionists, by the America First crowd on the right, like the Ted Cruzes, like the Mark Levins, the Ben Shapiros, the Randy Fines of the world, to, say, oh, these people are filled with hate. And then you're the one to call them a Nazi. Then you're the one to drum up all the vitriol and verbiage that you said led to the attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. And you're going to use that same rhetoric that you said would inspire this kind of behavior that you said was vile when it came from the left. And you're going to apply that to your own tribe, people within your own tribe who you don't like. Over economics? No. Over healthcare? No. Over the surveillance state? No. Over tax policy? No. Over the regulatory state? No. Over Israel? Yes. That is the only issue that has led to this kind of vitriol from the Zionist right toward those that dare to just have a conversation with someone they don't agree with. The thing that we mocked, or they mocked, I should say, when it was the liberals doing that, when they were snowflakes if they didn't do that. But now they've adopted, again, that same mindset toward people like Tucker Carlson, the people that they disdain more than their political rivals on the left, more than, basically any other force on this planet. This is how they operate. This is really the most poisonous ramification of the Israel First movement. They're playing an old game. They're trying to divide people between, pro-Zionist and pro-Israel, even when it's within their own tribe, when they act like, hey, we're all on a team, we're all united, we need to unite against the left. And then again, this vitriol is more fierce toward people like Tucker Carlson and Brett Cooper, who is a public figure, but she's 23. And like Candace said, she mostly talks about pop culture. It's just so ridiculous. And it got me thinking about this tweet. I think Brett Weinstein put it pretty well here. When he, had this satirical tweet, he said, "I apologize for having Daryl Davis on Dark Horse, despite the fact I knew he befriends Nazis and Klansmen. And I take back the positive things I said about his musical talent in light of his moral failings. I hope my audience will forgive me." Well, what he's talking about here is Daryl Davis. If you don't know who that is, he's a famous figure. He's a black man. He used to befriend Klansmen, many of them, and actually win them over to lose their hatred toward black people just because he befriended them. He, would go into their communities. He'd go to potlucks with them, events, sporting events. He'd even go to Klan rallies like this and talk to this guy, and he would collect their hoods. He collected their hoods as kind of like a trophy. Like, hey, man, just by befriending these people, talking to them, platforming them, by platforming them, he turned them away by those ways. And I think we can learn a lot from that example. I mean, that's a funny tweet, but I think it really does say it all, doesn't it? The fact that, you can actually break bread with people you disagree with, even if you very viscerally disagree with them on some issues, and then maybe have some common ground in some areas. Maybe the lesson of this is getting them to moderate their positions that you think are most radical, and that being a good thing. But that's not what any of these Zionists did in relation and in response to the conversation, for instance, with Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, where he obviously said, yeah, I would never say that all Jews are bad or all Jews are evil or anything like that. Those aren't the clips that the Zionists are playing, which seems to show moderation compared to many of the things they think about Nick and some previous things he said. Wouldn't that show progression from, the worst excesses of his ideology in their mind? I would say yeah, and I would say that's a good thing. I would say that is more beneficial than it ever could have been, but they won't do that because they're drumming up him as a boogeyman to try to make it seem like they're in the right no matter what, and you can't talk to these people because I said so, and it's only over the Israel issue. Anyone else is fair game. You can talk to communists. You can talk to trans rights activists. You guys, we can interview Benjamin Netanyahu, a genocidal freak, but you can't interview Nick Fuentes, who dared to have impure thoughts in your mind. Didn't kill 100,000 people like Netanyahu has in Gaza, and that might be conservative, by the way. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments down below. Am I right about this? Is Candace right about this? Is this the game of the Zionists? What does this say about the fracture in the MAGA coalition? And is the half that Zionist even MAGA? It seems like they're MEGA to me. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace. Thank you for this segment, Candace. And if you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member of mine. You can do that by clicking the join button below. If you do that, you can help support the channel. I really appreciate that. And in return, I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. Those are the members only videos right now. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. I'll send that right to you for free via email. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.